Welcome back to Hardware Unboxed. Today we're looking at the most important comparison in PC gaming history, a battle so grand that you simply won't know what to do with yourself after you've seen these two performance powerhouses battle it out. Well, maybe not, but I will be comparing two very popular mobile processors in the most popular game out there right now, and that is, of course, Fortnite. The two processors we're looking at today are the Intel Core i5-8250U and the AMD Ryzen 5-2500U. These two CPUs are designed for mid-range, ultra-thin laptops down to 13 inches in size or smaller, and both pack TDPs of just 15 watts. So we're looking at the best available options from both Intel and AMD in this category. Importantly, we're looking at the performance of integrated graphics in this comparison. Our test laptops did not include discrete graphics. This is key because there are tons of laptops out there that use just a CPU and don't feature discrete GPUs. And people still want to play Fortnite on those sorts of systems. So this comparison will look at how Intel and AMD's offerings stack up when you try and play Fortnite on their integrated GPUs, and what sort of quality settings you can use to achieve the best performance, if good levels of performance are possible at all. A quick rundown of the specs. The Core i5-8250U is a quad-core processor with clock speeds ranging from 1.6 to 3.4 gigahertz, and there's also an integrated UHD 620 GPU with 24 execution units clocked up to 1100 megahertz. The Ryzen 5-2500U also has a quad-core CPU, this time clocked between 2.0 and 3.6 gigahertz. There's also a Vega 8 GPU with 512 shader cores clocked up to 1100 megahertz. On paper, the Ryzen APU has a significant GPU advantage, but we'll soon see how that translates in Fortnite. And if you're curious what test laptops we're using, the Core i5-8250U is inside the LG Gram 13 with 8GB of DDR4 memory, while the Ryzen 5-2500U is inside the HP Envy X360 13, also with 8GB of DDR4 memory. We've reviewed both of these systems in the past in case you were curious about them, so you can go back and check out those reviews if you missed them. So let's first take a look at how Fortnite performs at a native 1080p using the lowest detail settings. Naturally, these sorts of integrated GPUs aren't going to be good enough to play the game on anything but the lowest settings, and for the most part, the resolution will be the deciding factor between a playable and unplayable experience. Anyway, here we have Fortnite at 1080p, and the difference between the two mobile processors are quite large. The Ryzen 5-2500U on the right isn't exactly delivering a great experience at less than 30 FPS, with dips as low as 24 FPS or so, giving it that nice cinematic frame rate that everyone loves. But it's the Core i5-8250U that really struggles at 1080p, running at below 20 FPS for most of the test run. When you get into a firefight at less than 20 FPS, it's pretty hard to come out victorious, as you can see from this gameplay footage. For some dumb reason, I decided to create this benchmark run on the 8250U system at 1080p with this sort of performance, and I played a few rounds and struggled massively in all of them. A stuttery 20 FPS just isn't good enough to play Fortnite. To achieve a mere 30 FPS on the Ryzen 5-2500U system, I had to reduce the render resolution to 900p, which still isn't fantastic for a competitive game like Fortnite, but we're beginning to get into the realms of playability. Aside from a few brief drops below 30 FPS, at this resolution, Fortnite hovered around 35 FPS. However, 900p isn't good enough for the 8250U. We're still playing at 25 FPS or so, which sucks, and with long stretches of gameplay down around 20 FPS. And of course, the GPU is pegged at 100% consistently with quite low CPU utilization. It's at 720p where the Ryzen 5-2500U hits a sweet spot between performance and visual quality. You really don't want to reduce the resolution any further on a 1080p display, but 720p is quite playable without looking like absolute garbage. It's certainly getting there, but it's not fully absolute garbage. On the 2500U, running the game at 720p delivers at least 40 FPS with the occasional dip into the high 30s, but most of you sit between 40 and 50 FPS. While it's not a locked 60 FPS, you have to remember we're playing the game on an ultra-thin laptop with just a 15-watt APU. There's not a lot of power or thermal headroom in this sort of device, so to even achieve mid-40 FPS at 720p is very impressive, and that's a perfectly playable sort of experience. It's even more impressive when displayed next to the 8250U at 720p. Intel's offering barely reaches 30 FPS at this resolution, with dips below 30 FPS quite common in more intense areas. I'm sure some players will be fine with 30 FPS, but when you can get 10 to 15 FPS more on the Ryzen 5 2500U, that's what I'd prefer for sure. It's a bit of a nightmare trying to hit a consistent 60 FPS on either of these processors. Even when you do get large stretches of gameplay well above 60 FPS, you can still get dips below. With that said, you need to turn down the resolution quite far on each system to achieve this level of performance. On the Ryzen 5 2500U, you're looking at a 540p resolution, while on the 8250U, you'll need a garbage 360p. And the game won't let you go below 360p, so at that point you're playing on literally the lowest settings the game allows. I mentioned just before that I found 40 to 50 FPS to be quite playable on the Ryzen 5 2500U at 720p, so here I've put that beside equivalent settings that achieve that performance on the Core i5-8250U. Unfortunately for Intel CPU owners, the resolution required for that performance is 480p, which when put beside 720p shows a large difference in visual quality. 720p isn't amazing, but at 480p it becomes difficult to spot enemies at a distance or really spot any details whatsoever. It's not impossible to play at 480p, but you're definitely at a competitive disadvantage compared to those running at higher resolutions. So I think this look at Fortnite on the Core i5-8250U and Ryzen 5 2500U won't surprise many people that have looked at reviews for either processor. It's well known that the 2500U has a significantly faster integrated Vega GPU than the Intel HD graphics found in the Core i5. When both processors are found in the same sorts of laptops, you should be on the lookout for Ryzen Mobile if you're interested in playing Fortnite or games of similar visual quality on a 13-inch ultra portable. You won't get a great experience on either system, and playing at a consistent 60 FPS is difficult without ridiculously low resolutions. But the Ryzen 5 2500U delivers above 30 FPS at 900p and a quite playable 40 to 50 FPS at 720p, whereas the Core i5-8250U can't hit a solid 30 FPS at 720p, and it's really only at 480p where you're hitting that above 40 FPS sweet spot. With these sorts of results, I generally class Fortnite as unplayable on the Core i5-8250U, while on the Ryzen 5 2500U, you can play the game on low quality settings at an acceptable enough resolution and frame rate. Again, that's pretty impressive considering this processor is found in a slim and light 13-inch system like the HP Envy X360. It's the first 15-watt class processor I've tested where you can genuinely play this sort of game without a discrete GPU. A few other final notes. It's actually a lot easier to play Fortnite on the Ryzen 5 2500U in general. The 8250U stutters a lot at random, while I didn't have that issue with Ryzen Mobile. Also, changing settings and especially resolutions on the 8250U system often implemented a 30 FPS cap for no reason, despite VSync and Fortnite's frame cap being disabled. I couldn't find any setting or reason as to why this would be occurring, but having a 30 FPS cap appear out of nowhere is pretty annoying. Ryzen Mobile is limited to 60 FPS, but honestly, that's fine considering the performance this APU delivers. That's it for this one. Bit of a quick look at Fortnite for those interested in these low power laptops. I know there are tons of people out there that buy these sorts of systems and want to know if they can play games on them. Usually the answer is no, especially for Intel's 15-watt parts, but now with Ryzen Mobile on the market, it's a bit of a different story. Consider supporting us on Patreon if you want exclusive access to our Discord chat, and I'll catch you in the next one.